Now, getting an education is a universal human right, sure, but it's not as simple as that, is it? Today, we're looking into what has happened to university students in Gaza, and specifically taking a look at those who want to apply to study abroad. What options do they have? I'm Stefanie Dekker, and this is The Stream.
Hello, I'm Mohamed Alazeb from Ghazza, and today I am going sharing my daily routine with you. As you can see, I live in a tent after being displaced and my home destroyed. And my life is very primitive. We have gone back years because of the war.
I'm writing my daily to-do list while studying at this humble desk that breaks my back.
I stopped going to the damaged university in Ghazza city because I can't afford the transportation fees, so that's why I am studying in my tent.
I'm continuing the studies by attending classes online, but an internet connection is not always available.
And if it is not the best.
Today I am filling up my water tank. I am going to the beach to fill it up. This is the hardest part of the day.
You might ask me what's my dream is. My dream is fulfill my mother and father wish to study dentistry via scholarship abroad because the university in Gaza are destroyed.
Education is a human right, and I hope that I will soon stop asking for donation to be able to afford it.
Well, that was Mohamed Alazeb telling us his story. He's a displaced university student in southern Gaza, and studying in international universities is the only option for many young people like him these days. Well, let's talk to Ahmed Issa. He is the founder of Scholarships for Gaza, a mentorship program that helps students from Gaza apply for higher education scholarships. And we also have Nora Parr. She's a researcher at the University of Birmingham who has been coordinating efforts to support the students. Now, before we start our conversation, let's take a look at these statistics from the United Nations. The data shows that since October 2023, all universities and colleges in Gaza have been destroyed. And more than 90,000 university students have had their education disrupted since then. That's the reality. Ahmed, let me start with you. Can you set the tone for our viewers, the scene really, what has happened to, in particular, we're talking about university students, to their education, their universities, the infrastructure? How, if they have been able to continue their studies, have they been able to do that?
Yeah, thank you very much, Stefanie, for having me. And yeah, since last year, the past 2 years, during the genocide, the students have left with no place to go to study, to continue their studies. Since then, I have created this scholarship for Gaza initiative to mentor students to be applying for scholarships to study abroad. But the reality is that the scholarships for Gaza is not a solution for the education problem in Gaza, but it's a way to contribute to rebuilding of the academic institutions. But the real problem should be helping to rebuilding the educational higher education in Gaza. I myself have studied in the Islamic University of Gaza, and I was forcibly displaced from Gaza during the genocide, and after finished my studies from the Palestine, from the Islamic University. I studied in the UK in a scholarship to continue my master's degree, and continuing my master's degree was one of the most life-changing experience for me. And since then, I wanted everyone in Gaza to be experiencing this, to be seeing the world from different angle, to be open to the world, to have their own platform.
It sounds amazing, doesn't it, if everybody had this opportunity, but it simply isn't available to the amount of students in Gaza who desperately want to continue their education. Nora, you have been helping Palestinian students from Gaza get scholarships abroad, right? Has that been able to continue since the war? Has it continued during this so-called ceasefire? How would you describe it? And what kind of numbers are we talking about?
So I've been working primarily with students arriving to the UK, We had 112 students evacuated from Gaza who arrived at UK universities this year. All of them had full scholarships. Our work sort of picks up where the work of Ahmed leaves off. So once students have an offer, we work with the universities to make sure that they can take up that offer and try to make sure that they can arrive safely and are well taken care of on campus. The UK government scheme evacuating students closed in December 2025, and the government is currently considering whether or not it will reopen the scheme. We very much hope they do. Things are looking promising, but the decision still has to be made. The decision was made to evacuate students when Palestine was very much in the news last summer. A lot of people in the UK were asking, what are we doing about Palestine? And the UK government responded with medical evacuations and student evacuations. So the worry, of course, is that now that there's a ceasefire, that the government won't act, that this will no longer be seen as a priority. But of course, the education institutions in Gaza have not been rebuilt. Quite a few of the organizations that we work with are increasing efforts to work with institutions so that any expertise that's coming to the UK is also going back to Gaza. But the reality is that some of the universities aren't going to have the specialist technologies, machineries, laboratories for students to do the work that they need to do. So some education is going to happen abroad if Gaza is going to rebuild itself in the way that it wants. And so we're hoping that students who need that education can access it in the UK and elsewhere.
Yeah, because we had the two of you show quite the path, isn't it? Ahmed, you help students with sort of the bureaucracy, if you will, and Nora, then you help them sort of get out once they get out, right? Ahmed, for people who don't understand, how difficult is it to get out of Gaza on one of these scholarships? And let me also ask you how it's not just it was difficult during the war, right? It was difficult even before the war.
Yeah, actually, it was like when I created this initiative, I know the scholarship once, because I have been in this process myself, so I know it's it takes a year. So from applying for universities, getting admissions, getting their English language requirements met, all of these it takes a year to get them. And when I created that, I said, okay, this, the war will not last for another year. So I said, okay, this year, we have students who get admissions, scholarships, then they can leave. But then I had a lot of students, around 40 students at that time. They secured fully funded scholarships with no evacuation process, with no visa applications. So that's where I felt very desperate, and I wanted to stop this, and I was asking the students what to do now. So they said, okay, we keep going, at least we are doing something every day. We wake up every day, we have hope that this will change that. So that's where I had this push from the students to keep going. But at the same time, luckily there was this initiative called Gaza 40, plus they have this campaign for pushing the government to do these evacuations. Since I had no way, or we did not have that much capabilities of communicating with diplomacies and to do these evacuations. So we were just focusing on the process of getting the students the scholarships, getting them the educated, getting them
the application
during the process, being supported,
the application process, right? Well, that has a lot of different components. Now, university students in Gaza face all kinds of delays because of that, and fingerprinting has been an issue recently. Listen to this.
Imagine your fingerprints standing between you and your future. There are 40 students from Ghazza, brilliant minds, accepted into top universities in the UK. They've already filled their visa application forms, but to finalize them, they need to do their biometrics, which is impossible in Ghazza. So these students need urgent help to evacuate, to not risk losing their scholarships and their future. Italy, Germany, France, and many countries helped evacuate Gaza students twice to continue pursuing their education. So the UK can certainly do the same. These students are ready to change the world. But right now, the world needs to change for them.
Nora, that clip was from last summer. Has anything changed since then?
Well, yes and no. So, in fact, there was a whole legal team that was working with students to try and gain for the students what is called a biometrics deferral. And now at the time, that was the only possible legal way for a student in Gaza, again, who couldn't register their biometrics because there's no visa application center for the UK any longer operating in Gaza. And you need to apply for a biometrics deferral. And a legal team took on many of the students to try and advance this and see if that they could secure the deferral for the students, which would make them one step closer to gaining the visa and possibly eligible for evacuation. Now, the biometric deferral applications were in the end all denied, but they were denied about a week after the former Home Secretary announced that students would be evacuated. So there is no permanent legal route for students. We know that the UK government is planning a route for students in conflict countries, but that's not going to be operational until 2027. So we are again asking government to reopen the route for another year because there is a huge need and a big gap in policy to make sure that students can take up their spaces.
I think, sorry to jump in there, but you seem to have answered a question I wanted to ask you. Are governments doing enough? I mean, Gaza has been in the news headlines, the genocide going on there for well over 2 years now. Are governments doing enough to help? As we heard in that clip there, the world needs to change to help these young minds. They're brilliant minds. I've been to Gaza going in and out for 20 years. People don't understand how many brilliant minds there are, just like anywhere else, but they simply don't have the opportunity. Are governments doing enough?
Well, I'd like to say that in the UK, it's really been the universities that are the drivers of government decisions. Universities have repeatedly and consistently asked for safe passage for their students and have really rallied to make sure that the students that they admit that they are invested in have their access to education. Government, thankfully, did follow the requests from universities last year, and we know that universities are already asking again for some clarity on the next phase, or a hope for a next phase of evacuations. Ultimately, it did take 5 months for the students to be evacuated. They started in August. The announcement came in August and the first evacuations were in September. But the last of the cohort that was meant to begin in the autumn of 2025, a small handful left as late as January. So the ask is for government to please be transparent, to be clear, and to communicate their intent, whether they are going to facilitate transportation for students again. We know that everybody's looking at the Rafah crossing, but we also know that that is not a reliable exit. So government does need to be prepared to evacuate students by whatever route is the safe route, and need to communicate their intention to do so. And we're very much hoping that they will answer earlier. We know that Ireland started evacuations in April last year for students starting in the autumn, and we are hoping that we will soon hear from the UK government responding to calls from universities to make sure that their students arrive on campus on time.
Ahmed, I want to bring it down to the micro level. Yes. You left Gaza. You mentioned there to continue your studies. You did your master's abroad. What was that like for you? So tell people, a lot of us, I think, take education for granted, right? How did you feel when you managed to get out, when you managed to complete your studies? Had you left Gaza before?
Yeah, actually, I left Gaza during COVID. And it was the first time for me to get this fully funded scholarship. And at that time, the Rafah was closed, but I managed to evacuate, and during a very sensitive time where I had 3 days to get out. I paid some money to get out. So at that time also they wanted to defer my studies to the next year, but I said no, I want to do this this year. So when I went to the UK, it was a very life-changing experience for me. Of course, because I have been like exposed to like different cultures, different being in a different like meeting different people. But at the same time was like depressing, like how like I waited for like when I was like 28 until I get a chance to leave Gaza. So it was, yeah, like I say, like why not? We are not like everyone to leave Gaza or like to just study abroad and to have the chance to the freedom of movement. So like since then I have this passion and I work very tirelessly to help everyone.
Do we have an idea of just how many students have managed to get out of Gaza on these scholarships? Because it does seem to be a minority, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Like we have helped like around 84 students to get fully funded scholarships. And not just like in the UK, it was like to Ireland, UK, Singapore, Italy, Spain, Belgium, and one to the USA. But we had like a very like large number of students who got this scholarship to the US, but they were not able to be evacuated because the visa processes like have been on hold at that time. On top of that, like what are the other challenges that you like I can mention, like the getting the English language requirement met, because there is no testing center, English testing center such as like IELTS or like TOEFL, or so the students was like struggling to get like internet connection. So we were like advocating for this, for the students to be taking this online test, which is called the Duolingo English test. So they can meet also with the internet availability, with the constant displacement and the constant loss also for like student. We have lost 4 students during like the mentorship process. One of them is like Shaban Al-Dalu and Sali Abeid and Nada Issa.
Really, really difficult circumstances and everybody still wanting to continue their studies. Nora, how would you describe the students that you help in terms of their determination, in terms of their aspirations? We heard from Ahmed there, you know, the most simple things that we take for granted, an internet connection, you know, being able to just process paperwork is something that they can't do. How determined do you find them?
I mean, really, our work was pushed on by the students. In the spring of last year, we were supporting 4 students and trying to work for their evacuation when one of our students put us in touch with 2 one young man and one young woman who had to defer their offer from the year before. And they had gathered every single person they knew with an offer to the UK, and they were starting to write letters to government. And we joined forces with them in the spring, and it was their determination that kept us going. When we ran out of ideas, they had more ideas. We could not stop helping because they did not stop working and finding solutions. So it is and is always the students that make this possible, and that, you know, really make you realize that it's such an easy ask. Just let them come. These young men and women have, with little help, you know, people like Ahmed and organizations like Scholarships for Gaza, but there aren't that many, have attained top spots at top universities, fully funded. These are not easy to get. And these really are incredibly intelligent young men and women who deserve the opportunities that they have earned. And so it's really just a matter of trying to make sure that the doors are open for them.
Absolutely. Ahmed and Nora, thank you so much for taking the time and joining us here on the stream today. Well, we're going to continue our discussion now with Ghada Ashour. She's a Palestinian master's student on a scholarship at Dublin City University. Ghada, thank you for joining us here on the stream. I want to start by asking you, you left Gaza. How was that like? Was it the first time for you? And how have you been adjusting to this new life?
Yeah, I left Gaza back in August 2025, and it was the very first time for me to leave Gaza. And it was like, whenever I left Gaza, I felt myself like I am a newborn baby who had to learn everything from scratch. I had mixed feeling whenever I left Gaza, because I personally survived, but I left my family there, displaced in tents. At that time, I had to make the hardest decision of my entire life, which is leaving my family behind. And at the same time, I felt very guilty that I am being given the chance to live my life normally and continue pursuing my education. On the other hand, many students in Gaza are still struggling to get very well educated. And just like to let you know a little bit about education, like I feel myself I have been given the chance to continue pursuing my education, which is I consider a chance not all students in Gaza have been given. And just to let you know, my brother was killed during the war. But before he was killed, he was dreaming actually of pursuing his education. So I feel myself I'm being given a chance, which some students who were killed never got through their entire life. So it's like I am filled with happiness. I have mixed feelings, which is I'm filled with happiness, but at the same time sadness.
I'm so sorry to hear about your brother, Ghada. May he rest in peace. Such difficult decisions, that you're facing, that you had to make, but you do see it in that way, right? Because so few students in Gaza get this opportunity, right? What is it? Describe to people who don't know Gaza, like what the education system was like and what happened during the war. Were you able to continue your studies? Was it put on hold? And how hard was it for you to get this scholarship?
Okay, let's divide your question part by part. For those who don't know Gazians, we are researchers, writers, dreamers, engineers. We work around the clock just to get any opportunity. Honestly, I'm speaking about myself before the genocide started. I used to work around the clock just like to kind of like get a scholarship out of Gaza. We study under bombardment. We don't study as normal students while we have good conditions to study. No, we normally study under bombardment. And this is not the case whenever the genocide started. It's the case even before the genocide started. We are ambitious. I know that many people around the world know that Gaza is being bombed, know that about the fact that we are being constantly bombed, but they don't know about the amount of hard work which we do every day as students in order to be very well educated and in order to be the same as many other people around the world. Inside Gaza, we suffer from bombardment. We suffer from many obstacles for us to complete our education, including the bombardment, forcible displacement, lack of necessity, while outside Gaza, we feel homesickness. And let me tell you a little bit about the level of higher condition education right now. Okay, most universities in Gaza have been completely or partially destroyed, and we all know this. And unfortunately, there is no solution for students to complete their education under those conditions. Thousands of students have been either killed or lost their houses, or they don't have good living conditions to continue their educations. My professors, I'm speaking about my professors. Many of them have been either killed or they left Gaza to other countries.
Ghada, very quickly, because we've run out of time, you're such an incredible, persevering spirit that you have. How do you see your future at this point? Where do you see yourself going? What are your dreams?
Honestly, just like to let you know, like my dreams and everything changed dramatically once I arrived to Ireland. Like Ireland has many things I couldn't have in Gaza. For example, right now I'm pursuing my master's degree. Like the next step, for example, it might be pursuing my PhD. If I were in Gaza at this moment, I wouldn't have this point of view. Not only I'm dreaming as well of going for some international companies here in Ireland, like to work there. So if I wasn't evacuated, if I hadn't been evacuated back in August, I wouldn't have this kind of dream. And as well for me personally, dreams for me as a Gazians is to see Gazians, is to I always dreams about Gazians living the same conditions which I have at this moment. I dream about never seeing tents in Gaza. I just pray to God every single moment never to see tents in Gaza, never to see students being displaced over and over, never to see a student who's pursuing his or her education while like let's say under very inhumane conditions. So yeah.
Ghada, that is all we have time for today. It's been such a pleasure hearing from you and having you here on the stream with us today. And thank you for watching. For me and the entire fantastic stream team, I'll see you soon.